Shall we start, Lou?
Okay.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to really give a big thank you to the club here tonight for allowing us to come and share a little bit about our story and what it's like to create model trains, and we'll have a chance to talk about the models, and we've even got a couple that we can put on the layout. Got a turbine with us and an SD40-2 that we can put through their paces tonight. Lou, thanks so much for coordinating. And this is for us, it's important for us to have the opportunity to really share who we are. We're a new company. We've only we announced a little over a year ago, but we've been processed for about 3 years. As we talk tonight, don't hesitate to ask questions. There's not a question that I haven't been asked. It can be anything from why do you make trains in China to what does tooling cost to how do you decide to make a model. As we go along, just stop me. We want this to be informal. We want to enjoy each other's company, and and I encourage your participation. So. This isn't just about me or the company, this is about all of us as modelers. So I'll share a little bit about who ScaleTrains.com is. So there's what I like to call the founding four. So this isn't just about me, this is about our crew. And what's really interesting, I'm going to tell this story from my perspective, but really we believe that there's a lot more to our story, and it's about what God's plan is for us. And it's how we are to be able to grow together for a higher purpose. Even though it's about making model trains, we've already had opportunities to bless people beyond what we do, and that's something that we really want to continue. So for our founding four, there's Mike Hopkin. Mike leads our product development team. Mike is a contest level modeler, and what's really neat is at one time, you guys ever read Mainline Modeler? Years gone by? Yeah, so Mike has actually been published many times in Mainline for his efforts in custom detailing models. Mike also does, he's a custom brass painter, still does that. But today, Mike's passion is actually building contest level models that people like you and I can build, because I can tell you I'm not at this skill level by any stretch. We have Joe Oliveira. He leads our marketing team. Joe does all the artwork that you see on our models. He creates like the catalog. He does all the advertising that you guys see. And then there's Paul Ellis. Paul Ellis is from our product development team. And Paul, if you go back in the past, you might remember some of these models like the Athearn Genesis SDP45, the Jeep 38-2, the 40-2. Paul led all of those projects when he was back at Athearn. So, and then there's myself, and I'm just blessed to be the guy that gets to go along for the ride and lead the team. My job is to support them and give them all the tools that they need to do their job. So that's the four of us. We're all four investors in the company. We've literally invested our life savings, our family's life savings to start the business. And so we've got a vested passion in making sure that we're successful. We're all four modelers. We know what you guys go through. We know the frustrations of pre-orders and not seeing something for years on end. We know the frustrations of having a beautiful model that doesn't run. Just because it looks pretty, it's got to perform as well. So we get all that. And we have a bigger team. The neat thing is, it started with the four of us, but we've grown. Anybody ever called us before? Talked to Kimberly on the phone? Kimberly's the lovely lady. I'm based out of near Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm actually halfway between Chattanooga and Knoxville. The other three guys that I mentioned live in Southern California. Kimberly is in Champaign, Illinois, and she leads our sales efforts. We also have someone, if you've ever emailed us, she'll reply back to you. That's my wife, Michelle. She's in the office and takes care of all of our emails to the sales box, and she's the one that helps keep me on track, helps me travel a lot. I'm gone a ton, and she keeps the home fires burning for us. We were blessed to hire an operations manager last year. We've got, in Tennessee, we have our office, and then we also have a warehouse out back, and we have a full-time person, thank goodness, because it was up until May of this past, actually through June, my wife and I shipped every box out of our warehouse. We moved over 10,000 parcels in the first 6 months of the year. So to run a business full time and then ship all the time, we really needed Bruce. And then we just hired Mark McAllister. He is the president of the Chattanooga Modular Modelers Club, and he'll be coming on as our full-time product support person. So he'll be answering product support emails, phone calls, and taking care of any service work that we may do. And then we got some part-timers, including my kids. They love to come and help when we get a new container in. We have some folks from our church that come and help. And then we have actually a really dedicated group of researchers. If any of you guys are experts on a particular railroad or a particular locomotive or freight car, we'd love to meet with you, visit with you. We're always out seeking documentation, and we rely a ton on our research folks. So a little bit about the company. You know, this all started as a joke, quite honestly. Mike and I, we traveled a ton together in our previous life. And in 2012, we really were traveling. We probably traveled a good 15, 20 weekends that year. And we were at the National Train Show down in Atlanta together. And it started out as a joke. I don't even remember who said it, but one of us said, wouldn't it be fun to own our own model railroad company? It's like, oh yeah, really? We'll never do that. But it was one of those seeds that kind of germinated, kind of planted, and we started talking about it. You know? But it's like, well, where are we ever going to come up with the money? How are we ever going to start the company? How are we ever going to come up with our first products? But that seed started to build, and by the fall, winter of 2013, I'd written a business plan, and gosh, it looked kind of promising, but there was still, how are we going to come up with the money? And how are we, you know, we had really good financially secure jobs. We could have retired where we were at. And it's that, you know, that leap off the cliff when you put your family's life on the line. And so finally that winter we approached Joe, and we were at Train Fest in Milwaukee. And what was really funny is we laid out the business plan to Joe, and I expected him to have to go home and talk to his wife. And on the spot he says, let's go. And then so we continued to work on it in February of 14. Mike and I, Mike's got a lot of contacts in China. He's been traveling back and forth about 20 years. And he had a lot of factory contacts, engineering contacts. And so it was really funny, between trade shows, we literally got on an airplane, flew to China, spent the week in China, found a factory, found an engineering team, found a tool house, and literally got back on Sunday night and went to work on Monday morning. And let me tell you, if you've ever flown around the world, you know what jet lag's like. It was really hard to go to work and just keep a straight face and not tell anybody what you were doing the next day. And the next 3 months, we really worked hard to leave the company that we were at in great shape. We left them a 2-year product plan. We finished up every project that we could possibly do, because when we walked out the door, we wanted to leave with the feeling knowing that we left them in the best shape we possibly could. And on May 2nd, 2014, you know, we pulled the ripcord and jumped off the cliff, and it's been quite interesting. So, you know, as we started the company, one of the things I challenged Mike, and we also brought Paul Ellis along. He came in the about March of that year. It's like, guys, I don't want to leave this job if we're going to be a Me Too company. That's the last thing I want to do. So if we're going to do this, we got to do things that nobody else is doing, because we need to be different, not for the sake of being different, but let's push our industry to levels that we haven't seen. Let's bring products to market that push technology or detail or whatever that might be. You know, we're the first company to come out with the sound reefer container. If you've ever seen the turbine and all the features that it has on it, I mean, things that are just absolutely groundbreaking for our industry. And what's amazing is when we left the company, we were under an 18-month non-compete, non-disclosure agreement, so we had to go dark for a while. And our goal was, when we announced at Train Fest in Milwaukee in 2015, which is just 18 months and 2 weeks later, so 2 weeks after the non-compete ended, we wanted to make sure that we came with products that you could see, touch, feel. And what was even more important to us, you know, some of us are really into detail. Some of us aren't. Some of us like to run trains. Some of us are on a budget. Some of us can't spend $300 for a locomotive or $40 or $50 for a freight car. So we had a strategic planning, and we'd already put this in our business plan. We flushed it out. We said, okay, we're going to come with 4 brands. And the 4 brands, you start on the end of the table. There's our Kit Classics brand. It's designed to be a value-priced brand of freight cars. We've only got 1 right now. We're working on our 2nd car right now. But the Kit Classics line's like the old Athearn Shake the Box kits, but how can we make it better? You know, one of the silly things we came up with, and we can talk more about the products, but how many of you guys ever built a Blue Box kit? All of us, right? Have you put it back in the box? Nope. And you took it somewhere, and when you got there, the couplers were broke off? Everybody's had that experience, right?
That's why I never put it back in the box.
Yeah. Why didn't somebody ever come up with an idea where you can actually put the car back in the box when it's assembled?
Well, you got to put the tissue.
That's where the tissue goes. So, but you know, it's a simple little thing, but it's those things as modelers that we know is important. And then we came up with our operator brand. And operator's designed for someone that likes to run trains, not as worried about detail, wants the scale dimensions, wants the model to look really good, but doesn't need all those parts that when you grab it that can break off if you're not delicate with the model. And then you move up to our rivet counter brand, and so in rivet counter, if you're a detail guy and you're into railroad and you're into road number specific detail,
that's me.
Rivet counter is where you're at. And then from the technology standpoint, we went to museum quality. And museum quality has all of that railroad and road number detail like the Rivet Counter brand, but we take it one step further with sound, lighting, and animation. So for instance, like in the turbine, the fan blade spins, you got a special lighting sequence on the startup, the cab lights up, the instrument panel, the class lights, the number boards, all of those things. And then it's got things like, as it goes through a curve, you get a frog or a curve squeal sound when the flanges press against the rail. As you go across a frog and a turnout, you'll get that frog clank sound. And then there's some extra special features, things like the opening doors so you can see the turbine on the inside, and a few more details that the Rivet Counter doesn't have. But our goal was, when we launched it at Milwaukee, that we would have all 4 brands and products that you can see and touch and feel. One of our commitments to you as a modeler, because we're modelers, when we make an announcement, you're going to hold it in your hand. We're not going to make an announcement, however financially painful it is, that you're going to look at a piece of line art, a real prototype photo, or just somebody that says we're going to make this model. When we say we're going to make an SD40-2, you're going to hold it in your hand so you can actually see the quality, see the detail. And when a manufacturer is this far in the process, there's not that much further until they're able to deliver. And I got to be honest, we've been a little later than we expected, but we've had a lot of growing pains. If you think about it, we designed our own coupler, so we didn't have a proven coupler that we could go and take right off the shelf. And in our Rivet Counter and museum quality brands, they're die-cast couplers. There's 3 different versions. In the Operator brand, they're plastic. We had to develop our own trucks. We had to develop our own drive systems. And all those processes took longer than we expected. But the good news now is we're really shortening that development time so that we can come to the street so much faster with that product. And you know, it was an interesting 18 months. 3 weeks before the show, anybody ever watch, did you guys see the ScaleTrains Big Dreams video series? Anybody see that? Yeah, 3 weeks before the show, I get a phone call, and all the guys are visiting from California. We're getting ready to go on an airplane and shoot that video. And we get the call that they've made all the turbines, and we're getting 8 road numbers, and 7 of the 8 road numbers are wrong. And so we were actually going to China the next morning anyway. And long story short, we got to China, and they didn't have the water tenders ready for us. We were supposed to air freight boxcars for the show. They had only done half when we got there. And we'd also found out they didn't have the tank cars ready for us. So it was a really interesting week. We literally got to Monday morning. We got in on Sunday and went to the factory, got the tour. Monday morning we had a meeting with every department head in the entire factory, and they made a commitment to us that before we left that week we would be walking out with samples. They ran 24/7 for 5 days straight to build us every turbine that we needed for the show. They built every water tender for the show, and literally within 2 weeks of the show we had all the stuff. We had to create a catalog and all that when we got back, but they gave us everything that we needed. So, and when we talk about 18 months for development, guys, that's nothing short of a miracle from God. Because let me tell you, a locomotive normally, from saying, yeah, we're going to do this, to the time you're able to run it on your railroad, is a minimum 2 years, and usually up to 3 years. For a freight car, it's usually about 18 months to 24 months. So we literally did 2 tank cars. We did the kit, the boxcar kit, 2 versions of the turbine, and 1 water tender, all in less than 18 months. So you can hold it and see it in your hands. So we were really blessed to be able to do that. Had a lot of challenges along the way. If anybody saw the tank car debacle that happened in April or May, we call it Tank NATO. It was one of those moments where you open the container, you're like, dear God, why? It was a mess, and we were really blessed. We put that information out, and here's one of the most interesting. You talk about blessings. We put this email out to tell people of what's happened, and if you go back in our history, that is one of that. Even though there was nothing selling in that email, we were really provided for, because that was the biggest selling email that we ever did from the announcement of the company. It was unbelievable, and we were so blessed. Anybody get Railroad Model Craftsman? The editor of RMC, Stephen Priest, literally he calls me the following morning, and he says, Shane, I've got my plane tickets, and I'll be there this afternoon. And I get a little emotional because it's amazing to have friends in the industry. We have people, if you've ever heard of Moondog Rail Cars, flew in. We had people, Jim Schillhouse from Indianapolis, just an NMRA member. He was our first customer, believe it or not. And he says, I'm your first customer and I want to make sure you get it right. He flew down and we spent the better part of a month going through over 10,000 tank cars and inspecting every one, changing couplers on several thousand cars. But through it, we made us a lot stronger. And we're now, for us, probably our biggest challenges is managing the cash flow. It feels like this right now because shipments aren't consistent, but we're really working hard to become more consistent with our shipments so that that cash flow is more like this. And because we've invested a ton, there's a lot here on the table. But this year, anybody go to Springfield show here in 2 weeks up in Mass? We'll announce our next diesel locomotive, all new, never been done in brass or plastic, and you'll be able to hold it in your hand. You'll have 7 different versions and 2 running samples at the show. We'll announce probably 3 or 4 more HO freight cars this year, and we've got an in-scale locomotive that if all goes as planned, and it's going to be a tough one, but if anybody's one of the National In-Scale Convention in Pittsburgh, we should have our next locomotive there. And we're probably looking at 4 or 5 rolling stock releases in in-scale this year as well. So a lot more on the plate, and we've already got and 1 more locomotive this year in HO. And then we've got our 2019 or 2018 plan, and there's more in the pipeline for 18 too. So that kind of gives you guys an overview of who we are and what we're doing and where we're going. If any questions up to this point, anything you'd like to know about the process, or you want to say? Yes,
I'll
sir.
talk later.
I'm just curious as far as dealing with the folks in China.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure there's not a language barrier, so they're eager to do business with North America. But when you run into some kind of a snafu where you say as far as with the turbine, 7 out of 8 road numbers are wrong, how much of that is produced? How much of that is scrapped or redone?
And they actually had made they made 7 road numbers, but they make usually 3 or 4 samples of each, because as you go through the process, you always make more, because some things there's going to be a mistake because it's all hand built, and so they probably had about 24 to 30 bodies built.
Oh.
They literally scrapped all of them except the 3 that were the road number that was right, and they started over from scratch.
And they did that as a courtesy or
and they did, yeah.
goodwill?
It was actually their mistake. We give the factory drawings, we get an engineering drawing that we turn into a flat 2D, and we lay all the art on that. And the art literally calls out every part that you see on that locomotive in every color and where it goes. And when they ran the bodies, so on the turbine, and I'm gonna get this, I can't remember exactly. There's 3 different A unit bodies, and I think there's 5 different B unit bodies. And the bodies on the A's, there's a body that you can get handrails that stop short on the pilot, and there's another body where the handrails go all the way up, and they're what we call cored, which means pre-drilled. So when they come out of the mold, all you got to do is open up the hole a little bit, and it's good. That way you know it's in the right place.
So the hole's flashed over.
Yeah, a little bit. There's usually open. You just have to open it up just a little bit. They molded all the bodies with the wrong. They should have all had the grab irons, and 7 of the 8 that were supposed to have grab irons didn't.
All right, so it wasn't a total fiasco. It was only a limited run just for.
It was just the samples we wanted to show the model.
But you needed the samples to display.
Yeah, because we literally had catalogs, we had advertising, we had trade show signage, we'd made a pretty big deal about our unveiling at the show. We'd wrapped the booth all in curtains, so you couldn't see the booth until after the show opening, and we kept everything a secret till the night before. We had a preview party. And the thing was, our first model, we didn't want to, we couldn't say, gee guys, trust us, this is wrong. So we made sure, we had no choice but to get it right. Now that we get a little leeway, when you see our models, and here's one of the things that's really amazing. As a manufacturer, you get what we call a T1 sample and a T2. Those are running. The VNSD 40-2 we were running right now is a T1. You take that T1 and you just run it to death, and literally to death, and that's where you learn where the yep. So we're averaging over 40 cars with it, usually 45 cars, and we'll go back, we'll make some tweaks, and we're confident that we can get it to pull over 50 cars. Then that's on the T2 sample that you get. And you also get what we call decoration samples. So everything you see on the table is pretty much a decoration sample. There's no internals inside, there might not be any weights, but it's a proof of concept model. And the proof of concept model is, are all the details on it? Are they in the right place? Are they the right details? Is the paint right? Is the color right? Is the location of the logo or the lettering or the warning labels all in the right place? So we make our deco samples. Most manufacturers do it off their what we call second shots. The problem is if we went off second shots, it's going to be a longer time to bring that product to market. And with the investment we've made, we've got to recover our investment fast. So we're having our factory make them off of what we call first shots, which means the fit and finish isn't quite perfect yet. The details aren't all quite figured out yet, but they're close. When you see a model that's if you guys ever watch like Atlas Rescue Form and we get raked across the coals because we're showing a T1 or a first sample and a deco sample, we're going to make changes. These are not going to be 100% perfect like what you're going to get for production, but that's why we get these models, the proof of concept models. So there's always going to be changes from the time we get what you're going to see the first time to what actually comes out of the factory.
Follow up?
Sure.
Your spec sheet, specifications,
Mhm.
they work off of. How is it written up? What language?
It's in English.
It's all in.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's up to your reps at the factory to
Yeah. So we.
dissect it and put it in a language that's understandable by the actual.
Yeah. Everything. Well, actually, what happens is numbers are universal. So everything is assigned a number. So all you got to do is match numbers from the mold to the drawing. All colors are assigned a number. So we send paint chips to the factory that have been sprayed, and we put a number on it. So we say use paint chip 123 or 789 or whatever that number is. So then the factory goes, yep, that's the color. And then our factory owner speaks very fluent English. Our project manager speaks great English. We have an interpreter. Don't really use the interpreter that much because we're mostly dealing with the project manager and the factory owner. But because numbers are universal, it makes it very easy. I mean, there's over 1,200 parts on the 3-unit turbine, and every one of those is called out in the drawing so that they know exactly what goes on the model.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions I can answer before we jump to the next part? How we doing? Lou, how much time do we have tonight? I don't want to monopolize.
As long as you want.
All right.
We're good.
I think what we're going to do is, you may have seen this video. This was our introductory video. I'm going to show that. That'll give you, it focuses on the turbine, but as you watch this video, and we'll kind of come around this side so you all can see the screen. As we watch the video, it's going to talk a lot about who we are and what the mission is, and then it's going to talk a little bit about the turbine. Granted, I understand that probably nobody in this room, or maybe just one person's a Union Pacific modeler. There we go. But as you watch it, the concepts and techniques are exactly the same for whether we're developing an SD40-2 or the locomotive we'll announce in 2 weeks. The processes are all the same. And then what we'll do after the video, I'll walk you guys through the processes in a little bit more depth. We can talk about each process if you want to learn a little bit more, because it'll cover everything from how we do the research to how we create a research package for the factory to the engineering, the whole 9 yards. So we'll put it up here on the big screen, and then this is about an 8-minute video. We'll get into the nuts and bolts, and we'll do everything we can to wrap up by the top of the hour, and then we can go back in the back and play for a little bit. All right.
Fine details, needs to say they generally don't survive.
The nice thing about the turbine, though, a lot of the detail parts, unlike a hood unit, I mean, you're grabbing this guy like this, you're not going to hurt him.
Yeah.
Oh, that's something else I didn't show you.
I have two of the line.
And roughly, let's call it 15 to 20 miles an hour. That's as fast as it will go. You actually have to turn on the turbine to get it to go faster. And the prototype worked exactly the same way. This little engine was just made to shuttle it around.
So just for some technical questions, on the real one, what size engine did GE use in their first one?
Just one.
Just one. I thought they had.
Yeah, they put the prime diesel in for around the yard in areas where they could not run the turbine.
And then both of the models, by the way, are powered, all-wheel pickup. All-wheel.
Yeah, when it originally was here, was wide on layout, way back.
It's in the basement there, like,
Yes.
it's the same.
It's got to be at least 25 years ago.
Well, it'll be the same.
Okay, but
It'll be the same if you go back. It'll be the same.
Okay.
Except for that guy all the way in the back with his narrow gauge. He's worked on that for the last couple of years.
That I don't know. I wasn't.
I mean, this is beautiful, but I think the layout is very impressive. Now, don't I wish?